the meeting to order. So I'm not even sure who's all supposed to be on this committee, so what are we missing?
I did text Bret. I texted him and told him we're here. So far we've been there.
Yeah, just know when they come.
All right, I guess I don't know if we can start in. I'm not sure what some of this is about, so I'll let you.
Well, we just, as you brought forward, well, all of us are working very hard on Coginia, like extremely hard on Coginia. If you start looking through policy and you start getting into G's and things like this, it should be this committee that kind of leads us through the 5-year process of Coginia. And then when you get to the end, there shouldn't be a ton of work to do. The 140 pages should already be kind of filled in by this committee. So we passed goals as a board, and then what you should do is you should build a 5-year strategic plan around those goals, which would then make Coginia a whole lot easier for everybody to do. One thing and we're not the only ones. I mean, I was talking to a superintendent in Alexander, and she's going through the same process. She has no 5-year strategic plan. She knows she's going to get banged on it on her Coginia review. She knows she's going to get in trouble, but that's just the way they did it. If we wanted to make it less work long term, that we would want to talk through how we want to do that in the future. And so, she brought forward policy GA, AA, and policy G, I can't remember what you just said.
GAA.
Yeah, which clearly defines the role of a committee to define those curriculum pieces and those types of issues. So that's really one of the things, I wanted to point out that there are consultants that are typically used that would not be in this budget, it would be in another budget. I think to evaluate a consultant, I think it's as good to have as many people involved as possible. So it would be up to this committee of how you wanted to have a subcommittee, how you wanted to form the subcommittee, how you wanted to do that. And then you'd bring your recommendation to this committee, and then this committee be able to evaluate it. The central focus of stakeholders and the engagement of stakeholders. I'm sorry I didn't get enough chairs.
You're good. I'm good right here.
I apologize. And then, I think that I brought this in because this is definitely going to be a central focus. South Prairie, it was reported to me yesterday, walked into school on January 2nd with 14 new ELL students. 14. Healthcare is going to frontline workers, and they're using single-year visas and trying to get. So I think a central ELL needs to be a central thought process for the district, and how are we going to address it? Because I don't think that ELL is going to go away, but then I don't think the labor shortage is going to go away either. You can say AI is a possibility, but that can't be AI unless it's teacher driven. And how do you incorporate it? And how do we want to address ELL? It's not like, even in the biggest districts, you can't address ELL very easily. It's hard to get people to get the certifications. It's hard to do all of that work. But at the same time, you need to have a 5-year plan. And I think this needs to kind of be a genesis point so that we don't get to a point 5 years from now in a Coginia review where everything gets, I don't want to make a plan 2 years before, because every year you have to report as a superintendent on your Coginia progress. You have to put that in June. And I don't want to write a report every year that we have a plan to make a plan. I want to be able to bring minutes from this committee. I want to be able to bring processes from this committee and to show the state that we are moving forward. Yes, the state will approve you saying you have a plan to make a plan, and they will leave it up to you to be ready for that 5-year checkpoint, right? But if you can show reasonable growth through 5 years, it makes it a lot easier to get to that checkpoint than the 5th year. So I'm open to any thoughts on that, and then if you wanted to review points that you think that we need to talk about for that 5-year plan within the strategic plan, how we want to handle those within that policy. I didn't think reviewing the policy I thought the policy would get kind of gummed up here with a lot of us having 8 o'clock meetings. But if you want to go into thoughts you have on things we need to work through as we lead our district through the next process so that we don't get to a point where we basically have to just throw a bunch of stuff together for that checkpoint process with the state.
Well, the first thing I want to ask, and I think I'm going to address this more to you than anybody, but does anybody know where the strategic plan is? Because we've worked hard on that.
Is that very,
Yes, Mr. Sam.
oh, Mr. Sherman?
All that meeting that we did, all those big sheets of paper that we wrote up.
That was with Mr. Stupid.
Well, yes.
That was the one before.
So, because we were in TLA when we worked on that stuff. As part of our master's program.
Yeah, it was. So, yeah. Because
I have
I
never seen a completed strategic plan.
I don't know when it's completed, but we spent hours, so there was a start.
Because I would assume that would have been put in like what we have for Coginia now, and but I have never seen one.
Your Coginia report lasts for the last 2 years, actually 3 years, coming back 3 years. It's just a plan to make a plan. It's not actually, you don't have any framework in there.
I guess I would like, if we could find that, that would be, because I know we spent a lot of time on that, and it would be good to go from there. I don't know about hiring a consultant. I don't know what this group thinks about that.
I guess I would like to know more about what is the consultant's role, what do they do, what would they provide, and, you know, what kind of, how could they lighten the load? I think those are important questions. If we don't really know what they provide, then it's hard to make a decision.
Correct. Well, and I would also like to know, since we're already using Be Legendary, I thought they were part of this as well. So would we be double doing if we hired a consultant and had Be Legendary? Those are questions I have.
I don't think that you're doubling up. I think Be Legendary is a great. Be Legendary is based on Lone Star governance in the state of Texas, and every district was required, and I think every district will be required to go through Be Legendary in the state of North Dakota eventually. If you haven't gone through the grant route, you're going to have to do it and pay for it yourself. I think that's eventually where we're going to get. So you've developed your goals, you've got your board processes in place, you can click that off in your strategic plan of what we're doing. But I think the how in your 5-year goals is going to come from either this committee or with the help of a consultant. I think you're right. I mean, I've never worked with a Jeff Schatz or a Ken Jelmstead on the how of how they develop those strategic plans, but I know that's a very common thing to do, is to work with them, because that's all Jeff Schatz does, and then it's Ken Jelmstead does it as a part of his business.
So is this something we would do this school year?
No.
Or would be next school year?
I think we need to decide the how this year, and then we would budget for what this committee would decide in the next budget cycle.
Okay.
And once we get through the Coginia process this year, then you start working on next year, or next 5 years, so that we continually are taking small steps towards getting things done instead of trying to get it all done in a year.
Well, what do we do for this year? Are we just getting up for this year, or what's?
No, they're doing a fantastic job, working very hard.
Yes, we have been.
it's a lot of work, and so I'm not trying to dump, like, the reason I'm talking about, like, just evaluating helpers over the next 5 years is because they're doing so much right now. Like, you know, having time to put all this paperwork together so that we can get through a cognitive review, and we know up front we're probably gonna be dinged on our 5-year plan, we're gonna be dinged on certain things that we just didn't do over the last 5 years. But we don't have to do that next time. We don't have to. We can work through this and methodically work through this process so we have these data points so that when the 5th year comes and we start talking about Coginia, it is, you know, 2-3 meetings during the year to collect all our data points, and then we have a relaxing year.
But if we were to find a previous strategic plan or what there was of a plan, wouldn't that be helpful, and wouldn't that help us with the review?
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna look for it. I have not seen any documentation to say that there was a previous, this is the first I have heard of it. So I will look for it. It's not in any of my files as a superintendent. I was left a file folder with all sorts of things in it. There was nothing in there.
We reached out to previous admin.
I will. I didn't know, because I had his Coginia report that stated what it stated, right? But I didn't know that there was something, a beginning to the plan that we were gonna make. I didn't even know that through reading that.
Well, I think our strategic plan will come together nicely with this being Coginia, because every section we have our plans of action that we're gonna take for each section, and then how do we build that in as a whole for our district. Coginia does have strategic plans in there that, like, Stanley and Gross and had done previously in ours, but they're very generic. So our Coginia team had already talked about how we want to approach that. We've also talked about making sure whether it's the Coginia team that we have here or the leadership team all together, that we get together and we do meet twice a year, go through, make sure we have our data collection, we have a shared folder, because there's turnover all the time. And you know, if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work on it and keep it, and then all of a sudden I get hit by a bus and I'm gone, who's gonna know where it's at or what happens to it? So we've been already in those discussions for that. I think once we see how Coginia goes, and when we get to that strategic plan part of Coginia, if we need a reviewer because we're completely at a loss, then I think it'd be good to look at Ken or those guys. The other thing is we have really great resources out of NCEC with Katie Tamburino and Tanya Hunsker. Katie is a huge data person. When she came and did our LEAT visits, I sat and visited with her, and we talked about data points and some different things that we can do and the strategic plan. So there is strategic plan information in Coginia. I don't think we're going to get deemed as bad as you think. So there is our stuff out there that we found on our side, and I'm sure you have it on your side as well.
Well, I don't know, as far as some of that, what you say, what we've done and what's been done for moving forward with a strategic plan, no, I'd like that documented, that strategic plan, where it is and what it is.
I'll show you where we found ours on Coginia for you today. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. We've already had those discussions on being proactive for the 5-year accreditation. Yeah, things that when I've been talking to the other principals, they meet twice a year with their teams, and that way they have data, and it's not all of a sudden, oh, we're in a Coginia year, let's go and try to think what we did over the past 5 years. Because that's the struggle point that we're at right now, especially being new administrator.
So I assume that there's a whole framework that they give you that you're basically going through and answering questions.
So we have a website, Coginia MyJourney, where we go through, and there's data that gets put in there. That's where we'll put all of our information into. We do that in March, I believe.
When they open that up.
Yeah. So they have So they have the MyJourney in there, and then through NCEC, we've got they're called Coginia workbooks, where you go through, the standards are there, you put your data in, you can link all of your stuff in. So we've gotten that through NCEC, so we have a big bunch of Google stuff. Yeah, that we're.
It's like an 80-page workbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
32 or 36 standards that we have to address.
So is there a way that this group can help with that preparation now?
feel like we've got a pretty good, system going for how we're tackling it, so maybe not, I don't know, I do think as we go through each standard, it seems like it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I think we've got a good diversity on our Coginia team up here. So we've got Nicole, Jody, myself, Mr. Rass, and Ms. Jensen. So we get a wide array of what we're doing, so different ideas are coming in, we do our research. So I don't know if we need that right now, but when we look at the big strategic plan, I think as a district, we come together. Yeah, but I think on our individual portions for Coginia, I don't think we need to do that. Dr. Hardin and I, we do visit periodically what where we're at. If we have questions, we share some documents back and forth, so we have, everything's gonna be put together similarly.
So how far away is that?
The Coginia review,
No, well, yeah, that's another question I have, I don't even know what it is.
we're in April for that. Our timeline. So, we're gonna be done with our 4th major group. Our goal is to be done February 20th. So then, right around that point is when we're gonna be doing strategic plan, once we have all of those plans to action from the 4 groups.
They want all the documentation in, by the end of February.
So,
Yeah, February, beginning of March.
including the big group, including the district, so that time is now too.
Yeah, we've got our dates of, we got our first group done before we went on Christmas break. Second group, we're gonna have January 16th, and then February 6th, and February 20th, so. Yeah, it's busy, but we've got good people on our crew, so.
Okay, so when do you recommend that we bring, and also I think part of the reason these are recommended Coginia policies is because they also talk about, community stakeholders, and I know we did that too. We had that whole big group before, so I don't know if that's part of what we have to do is bring in, you know, additional people at some point.
I haven't seen anything in that workbook about community involvement, and I've kind of paged through most of it. But I do remember that from last time, having that big meeting.
Well, they talk to community people, don't they? Because we've
Yeah,
Yes,
when
yes.
Coginia comes in, they do.
Yeah, we have to have parents and two community, like 2 parents, 2 community, and students.
So
And then they'll
perhaps the-
periodically do staff too.
Perhaps the idea with including them was so that people are all kind of on the same page. I don't know. Because it does kind of refer to that in these policies somewhere.
When we had all those people that came and we worked in groups and so on, weren't we also working on our mission and vision statements? Wasn't that what,
That's very
that was a
possible,
big
too.
chunk of it?
That
So I
definitely.
don't know,
I think
I
those
don't
guide your
remember
strategic
if it
plans, so I
was-
think you have to at
Right.
least review them, if not create new ones or
so
whatever.
I know we worked on creating those. I'm not sure what else was included.
What I've done in Coginia in the past, last couple times, we changed, year 1 was the changing of the mission and vision. We were editing the mission and vision first of the year.
I do, it was my first year on the school board, and I know it was, Scranton was, we had 2 or 3 leadership meetings that year, and I know we did some of that.
Yeah, that was that wasn't the year that we did the huge amount of work though. 'Cause
No.
that was the, because we didn't pass or whatever the time before, right? That was a revisit. 2 years? I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't have them, you can do it
I
right.
think that's it.
So I guess what I wanted to come from this is I wanted to have a clear direction, or at least on whether we're gonna form a subcommittee to kind of evaluate different people who could help us with this. And then, so like when we have our next meeting, we can talk about a process that we're gonna use to evaluate people. Which would go into the how that Nicole talked about, like what does these evaluators actually do? And how would they bring value to us? And then should we pursue this or should we not? What is the price to the district? Those type of things. Because I mean, we want to help people through this. We have enough on our plates the way it is. And this time we didn't necessarily plan to have that assistance. But we can have it if we do enough preparation and we think through it. And what does, and then, you know, make the recommendation, talk about it to the board, the committee, and then the board can talk about it at a regular meeting. Similar to how we would process the committee structure in a board meeting. It starts at the committee level and moves up to the regular board for passage.
Well, we can't just decide to form a subcommittee, that's a board decision, or obviously hire a consultant, but honestly, to me, I think we need to focus on this year's Coginia for the next 2 months. That's my opinion. And what this group can do to help with that.
I think all the teachers are already involved in it right now, unless they want, like, you know, sub days. If you guys need a day off, where we have to pay for subs.
Yeah, we've asked for that. So as soon as we can get that.
Yeah, go ahead. And then, whatever else you would think.
I would echo Vanessa and that, you know, let's just really finish hammering out what we've got here, and then when we get to those portions at the end where it talks about what you're doing going forward, that's when, like Kevin said, that's when we're probably going to need help. And then maybe we decide, do we need a consultant, or do we ask MCEC
I would
what
explore those resources.
they have available? Because those are people we already know and work with, so that would be awesome if they do something like that. Right, so if they can help with strategic planning, it'd be nice to work with someone you already have a relationship with.
Agreed.
So one thing I just want to add, you started with this and then we got off topic, but I want to talk about ELF for a second. Because I think we are in not the greatest shape in Harvey. In fact, I'll tell you that we just got a kid that if he speaks 5-8 words of English, and you can't manage it with a phone. You cannot manage it with technology. It's got to be personal contact. All right? I mean, I tried. I'm terrible at it. And so I went around and I found a pair that speaks great fluent Spanish. So she sits by him one-on-one. In 3 days, they've developed a tremendous bond. They are working together so well. He even now will offer in 3 days. She's got him offering stuff in class, right? But this wave is not going away. I just talked to the state teacher of the year after me. She's in Grand Forks. She's the MLL specialist. They grew last year by 400% in MLL, and it's coming this way. And we have nothing. We have nothing. Telling me to teach Spanish to a kid is like telling me to fly an airplane. I've never had it. I don't know what I'm doing, right? And I also have 18 other kids in the room that need my instruction as well. So I think we really need to visit this, and to be quite honest, if this wave is coming, we need to do it fast. Because when I first started working with this kid on Monday morning, you could see in his eyes the frustration, and I could feel mine, because we neither of us knew what we wanted to say. And I was using technology. I was using Google Translate. And every time I'd get the cold, it would say coal. And you look at me like, well, I'm like, yeah, I know, I don't know. So I think we need somebody, someone that can head up our ELL department. In fact, I don't think, I know we do, right? I know we do, and I know that person's hard to find. But I think in my personal experience, in the last 3 days, I know it's very limited, but I think we got that person in our school. I think she's tremendous, and she has told me this is the most rewarding thing she's ever done. When I asked her to do this and help me, she went home that weekend and compiled, I don't know how many resources, but it had to have taken her 20 hours at least. She worked all weekend. She has things laminated. She built a schedule for this kid with English and Spanish. She used visuals. Like I can't have that kind of time resource, and B, I don't know where to start. So I really think that's something that we put on this agenda and start visiting, because otherwise this problem is just going to manifest. We're going to start getting kindergartners, first graders, and up to seniors that don't speak English. I'll give you one more example. I didn't know this student came from Venezuela. So I tried to talk to him about Venezuela. What a disaster that was. She did. She talked to him. She found out that he was kidnapped in Costa Rica, him and his family. This kid's going through a ton. And you can't get that through a phone. You can't get that through a computer. It's got to be personal. That's my opinion. That's where I think all teaching is, quite honestly. It's relationships. So that's where I'm at right now. If you can tell, I'm frustrated because I feel like I'm not doing my job as an educator. And if I don't have this lady in my room.
And so, and that's an issue too, because that's not her assignment. So that just makes us, we're still short. You
Does
know.
Michaela have a degree of any kind?
She's got a 2-year, but she doesn't have a full.
She's a surge tech.
Yeah.
So Brett, are you talking about somebody to do the coordinator part, or
Somebody that works with the students.
the direct?
The direct.
Yeah,
So we have,
we have that coordinator through CREA.
yeah,
Okay, so
and-
we're gonna keep it that way, or that's.
well,
That's her term, that's the correct terminology.
that,
right?
yeah,
She's
she
the
is our
coordinator.
ELL coordinator. The issue is she's seeing the same thing that Bret has. Her caseload went from 23 last year to 56 this year. And other schools are having the same issue where they had an ELL director and then that person decided to go to a bigger district and all of a sudden she gains 10 people. So we can't guarantee that we will have her from Korea next year. If we get 10 more people, she might very well be over her workload and we don't have an ELL coordinator. So it's definitely a strong need to get that position. I know I visited with Dr. Lukens and he's reached out and trying to get someone that we currently possibly have on staff that would be interested in doing ELL. So if we have someone down there,
But
I
that's a
think it'd be
coordinator, but we also need direct services.
correct. Well, and I think currently our ELL numbers are low enough that you could get a director that could also do direct services. But as Bret said, we see this on the horizon that this is going to blow up on us. You know, then we work with the ELL director or coordinator that we have in the school. Okay, now we need to get somebody on staff. Because it's just like your SPED positions where there's a ton of paperwork, there's a ton of planning, and it's not just an extracurricular position where we just show up and, okay, we're going to do this. It is a teaching assignment that takes work, that takes prep, that takes time. And we've had that conversation when we look at special ed and we look at the DLL that, you know, maybe that's something that this leadership committee can look at too and make recommendations to the board on how we maybe need to separate these positions out in a negotiated agreement so we can be more marketable for those positions as well.
It's strongly recommended that you keep these kids in the regular classroom, which I completely agree with. I don't. That means as an educator, I've went through and had to translate every document that I use into Spanish, right? And that's where the other part comes in is Michaela has been taking over and helping, even finding resources that we can use for, like Spanish resources we can use with English students, so that they all feel kind of on. The 6th graders are learning Duolingo. I mean, everybody's doing their part, but I guess maybe it's just me in the room, but I feel very out of control. Like I don't have a grasp on what's going on. That's not fair. I've done this 26 years. It's the first time, but we've never had a plan for ELF. Do you guys know if we had one? We've never had one.
No, last year I worked with a couple of boys up here,
Yeah.
but that was sort of just a temporary Band-Aid.
And did they have some English speaking background? They were able to speak some English? You know, Nicole, could they speak something? See, this is something I've had students too that were, you could say were bilingual sort of.
You have is, not even remotely bilingual.
Yeah, not even close.
Students that we have had here, they speak English, but it's obviously not their first language, but it's not the same situation.
It's not at all.
And I'm thinking even if you have an ELL coordinator or a person that works with those students, it's not like they all speak another language. You know, they just learn how to work with kids that don't speak English.
Yeah.
So I don't even know, you'd still need somebody for this kind of situation you have when they don't speak any English at all.
I've had situations like you're saying where kids come with partial,
Yeah.
and then you can communicate, you know, when you work through that. But where do you start when they have zero?
My first day of teaching as a first year teacher, we walked into my classroom and they said, "You have a student that does not speak any English." So, and that's pretty common in schools like Grafton and other places like that. And so I'm really empathizing with the frustration that you're feeling. And I think
when it's common, they're kind of prepared for it too, when they have things in motion, and we have nothing. And we're so fortunate that we happen to have this person in our school that speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
Because it would be, and you know, the support for that student himself. That student needs that support.
Yep.
Could the NCEC coordinator that we have that works with our kids,
From
could
Priya?
she like meet with Bret and you and Michaela and just kind of come up with some ideas or give some
We reached out through
recommendations?
emails, the student is starting whatever and how many days,
Yeah,
you know, what kind of guidance, and she gave us a couple bullet points. That was NC, or not, that was Korea, not NC.
okay.
Yeah, so, and she's not able to work with them. Like, our next step then is to set this plan and to make this plan, and she will take the lead on that, and to meet with the parents, hopefully next week, Monday, Tuesday, whenever we can get that arranged, and it's up to the parents, because this,
And I'm sure
Miranda
her
will come out
caseload is
anytime.
as big as what people are saying she doesn't have.
but she's really good about getting Johnny on the spot. She's really, like, she came out right away, she's already been here, did the screening, she's coming Monday or Tuesday for the plan, so we're not having to wait, thank goodness.
So I will say the kid that we have is tremendous. He's got the greatest work ethic. Michaela offered him to take some stuff home, and he took it home, and he wants to learn English because his classmates have been so accepting of him, which is tremendous. I mean, that's just a credit to the kids. You know, and even yesterday at the end of the day, I have a picture of me and the Jones brothers on the wall, and he said, "Senior doctor, you?" So I had to learn how to say Jonas Brothers in Spanish, which I don't remember now, but he's got a great sense of humor. He wants to be, I feel like we were lucky in this situation, because I could tell you there's probably some situations we're going to have down the road that are going to be more of a struggle. We have a chance to make a difference on this kid. And
I think you're gonna be surprised how fast you can.
well, and that's what Michaela was saying. She said they had a conversation here, because we give them one-on-one time, because I think you need that. From what my friend in Grand Forks told me, she said they've got to learn, before you can teach them really anything, they've got to learn the language first. So Michaela's been taking them out, working with him and sounds first, and then getting to words and things like that. And done a tremendous job with that. And you know, Miss Dean and I are both like, we'll do whatever we can to fill in your classes. And I know she's in math, and Miss Dean and I both said, we'll go to math, because that's our band time. We'll prep, you know, whether we'll take study, we'll go to band, or to math. Because I don't want to see that bond broken already. I mean, if we say, okay, you got her for a week, but then next week you got nothing, where's that kid going to be?
And we didn't even know that this would develop like this, that they would get that
That
relationship
fast,
like
I
this,
mean,
that fast.
when
It's
she
like,
leaves the
we're
room,
just taking her for a week, can you just excuse her from her other duties so we can get him acclimated as much as we can, and it's turned out so much better than that.
when she
Just
leaves the
turned out
room,
to be-
he's looking, right? Because he wants to be a part of what's going on, but he can't understand. And how do you? I'm trying to figure my head. How do I stop so he can understand this, but also have the other kids still engaged? I guess something I've never had to do. Like I said to you earlier, the other ELL students I've had, they've all had enough. This isn't the case. And Dr. Lukens mentioned it. It's coming. It's coming in waves. I think one of the teachers in Bismarck, I know, has 5 in the room this year.
I had 7 in my first classroom, and that was just in Eastern North Dakota.
Yeah.
7. And so, the fact
So
that it
I think
hasn't
that's
happened
something
yet,
that we need to, I don't know how we do it. We gotta figure this out. Because I just don't wanna look at a bunch of hillbillies, honestly. If we're teaching, if we're saying we're there for every kid, or we're leaving this kid out, we're not there for every kid. And we're not doing what's right for every kid.
So if the teacher that's interested, possibly interested in ELL,
Yeah,
I think it would take less time for that person.
well,
to get
I'm
this
talking
degree.
about Michaela.
No, I'm
Oh, a
talking
teacher.
about-
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It would take less time for that person. I don't know if this is a point where he or she wants to do this, but, and then Michaela could still continue to be that resource.
100%,
for
yeah, yeah.
him.
And
Do you have a new para coming?
But not to fill her spot.
Oh, okay.
so we're working,
I was just curious
So
if
we're
that was,
basically short right now.
I thought maybe the new para was, okay.
so I talked to Miranda yesterday, and we do need a licensed teacher on staff, but if we have that connection with, there's ways that you can work the curriculum so that you can use Michaela in the process. I have to work on the funding side, which, as you said, she's funded through federal, but as long as she qualifies for title, then you can use her on the funding, and I'm assuming he's gonna qualify for
He
title.
does.
we tested.
Yeah, so then it's just fine. But there is a way to do that, and I talked to Miranda yesterday, because I got an email from her about this ELP, and I wanted to be able to have everything in place for you guys, so we talked like about 3 o'clock yesterday. And so she's actually, that's where I learned that she's in South Prairie today, because they had 14 EL students show up with the hospital. So, and they have nobody. They're exactly like us. If we had 1, they had 14. So she's trying to help them today, but she's hopeful to talk to some of our staff at the end of the day today to help us.
And I don't know how this works anymore. But I think an opportunity for a teacher or a para that's in our district that wants to further advance herself. Michaela might be a person to look at for like a para educator or whatever. I don't know what steps she's got to go through yet, but she's telling me this is the most rewarding thing she's ever done.
And she has expressed interest in
And
it.
she has, and she loves the job. Well, that's half the battle right there. If you have somebody that's coming in and saying, I love this, this is reinvigorating me. I'm like, well, how do we get you to be legal, I guess, is my thing.
Yeah, and I spent all weekend doing this.
Yeah,
We have the RAPT, and we have the Parity Teacher Program, which I expect to be refunded in this legislature. And I can get her enrolled in both of those, or get her interest in getting her enrolled in both of those. And that would not cost the district anything as far as it would be federally funded if it's RAPT, it's state funded if it's Parity Educator. And we could get working on that. She could start on her classes probably in the summer. I think it's a little late to start this semester for RAPT, but
State program.
Federal Parity Educator, basically. I don't know the federal jargon of what it stands for, but there are 2 outside of our funding sources programs that pay for paras to get their degrees, to become teachers.
I guess if I were in her shoes, first I would want to know, what credits do I have that are gonna,
Transfer.
lay it out.
Mm-hmm.
What are the logistics? How many courses do I have that count? and what am I gonna have to do? Like, I would wanna know what the plan is, how many courses there are
Yeah.
to take, and what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, and I mean, I did mention this to her, because I mean, so her excitement was pretty cool. And she said, I'm very interested, but we didn't get any deeper than that. So I think that's a great place to start. It's like, hey, are you serious about this?
Like, show her
Because,
what it would
yeah,
be,
here's the plan, and we can get you to this point.
Cause it's something, it's a lot of work while you're working and raising kids,
And,
so
you know,
that's something.
Yvonne just told me, she just said, one of the last things she says, with all these kids coming in, it's pretty stressful too. And so that's I think that somewhere along the line we have to relate to anybody taking a job. It's going to be stressful, especially like you said, in one day you have 14.
Yeah, can you imagine starting 4 days ago with 14 DL kids? And
So-
you're in exactly the same situation as us? That would be another level.
Well, my question would be, what happens, I mean, Spanish is one thing, you can.
Yeah.
Spanish people, what happens when somebody comes in and speaks Swahili or?
Yeah.
At Fargo South, we have Julki, who you might have met. She's only fluent in Spanish, and she has all the different languages at Fargo South, and they're able to develop all those different curriculums to kind of relate to all of that, and that's what this person would do, and that's part of the education the parent teacher and the RAFT program would pay for.
And Ivana too, she's from Bosnia, and I don't know what she speaks actually, but she's the head of all Grand Forks, and she speaks, or she doesn't speak it fluently, she said, but she does do Spanish, she does, so I think, that's where, if that's where their education is centered, I think they kind of find ways or know ways to, I guess that's my biggest thing, is I don't know, I've never did the studies on how to reach ELL students, and not that I've been lazy on it, just that's never.
It's not your fingerprint.
No, it's never presented itself, and now here it is, and I had, a week, not whatever it was, to say, hey, you gotta figure this out. So to be honest with you, I lost a lot of sleep in the last couple of days, because you don't want to have a kid sitting there for whatever, 2 hours in your class, hour and a half, and not understand a single thing you said the whole time. That's worthless time. So if she's there, she's helping them. And I feel like right now, we're making extremely good progress. And I don't think that will continue if it goes back to him just being in our classroom role. Even if I have whatever it is that we're gonna get, I just think personal contact is most important. I'm old school, I know. I'm very old school.
No, that research supports that.
I agree.
Research supports that it needs, that personal contact is very important in success.
Especially with kids that are coming in with, think about it, whole family kidnapped in Costa Rica. That's trauma. That's a big time trauma. And we would, if I would just been there, none of us would have known that. None of us would have known that. And so Michaela got that out. She shared it, and we shared it with the class, and and then of course yesterday went to FIED. Ms. Pearson did a tremendous job of playing soccer for the first day. And so every kid was just like, this kid's amazing. We gotta start a soccer team. And that's football coach, I didn't care for that. But my point is that there's relationships starting to form now. And you can see he's happy. And that's what you want.
That's so great to see. So we already have a relationship, to go off what you said, we already have a relationship with Mayville State. We already have a person in the RAFT program. They already did this whole process of developing what classes you need to take based on the fact that you have a 2-year degree. All we need to do is get that same process restarted if the person is willing. But all I need is a directive to go forward.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to talk to her. I don't even know that, haven't there been lots of parents to teachers happen without the board even being part of that at all?
If you want to go forward with this as a coordinator, it's going to be in addition to the budget. And so I just want, if I'm moving forward and creating a new position within the budget, I just wanted to have a directive from you to go forward and do that.
Oh, I can't make a directive to create a new.
Can we just acknowledge that you have the knowledge I'm talking to her about it, so that when I bring it to the board, it's not like.
I'm okay with that too, but we can't have the power to. But I think you should talk to her and find out where, this is it's already our job as a board to relieve their frustrations. It really is. And so anything we can do needs to be done.
So,
Right now,
yeah.
yeah.
And she had expressed interest, because remember you had sent out if there's people interested or whatever, and there were 2 people that said, yes, I'm interested, and that was before this even. So she had expressed interest, and I think it was just probably reinforced, and there's really, you know, kind of put a fire in her
And
for
to
that,
have,
so.
to have a little bit more direction is that this is the path that she
Yes.
wants to
Yeah.
go, so that that's the type of classes that she'd be taking is a good thing.
Yeah, and the reason we did parent teacher before is because it was always elementary positions. And we knew that we were going to have elementary positions in the budget, so you're just developing your pipeline into the regular budget. This is going to be something completely different. And so just so that the board has knowledge that I'm going to approach her on it is really all I want.
Well, and would it necessarily be something completely, I mean, it would, I don't know, we'd have to talk about how she would be hired, because I don't know that we're adding a complete position for this.
Yes, yep. And so the guideline would be is if you get over 20 students that are on ELPs, that would be a full-time person from the state. We tested over 10, but because we're bringing in, as you know, H2As and South Africans, where English is a very much more common language, a lot of those students are testing out for very minimal minutes. So our influx of new Americans is coming with a strong base in English a lot of the times. So I think that if this, one of my next meetings is the CDMA, which is where I learned about this process through the hospital, and if the hospital is fully committed to continually filling their frontline positions with these type of workers, which then is going to feed into our schools, I can see that trend changing. And so I think that's why this is in the strategic plan and the talk, why this is here.
Yeah, I would certainly talk to her about this. I'd be hesitant to tell her that would be her position.
Yeah.
It would be, I mean, she'd be teaching or something as well.
Yeah. It would be an elementary degree, and then this would be a side thing to her degree, and then as it would expand, or if it would expand, it would become, it's very hard to get people with that certification, so we would just have to work around the fact that she's the one who has the certification, and we have to address services through her.
So in the meantime, though,
I talked to Miranda last night, and we're working on getting, because you can have somebody on staff with a 3-year time plan, and that is legal to do that. And
so we have that plan for her.
yes, so we're working through the process. I literally got that email last night, talked to the director, we started moving on that. She can't work on it today because she's temporary, because they have a true disaster going on there.
So I just want to say I gotta go, but I just appreciate you listening and coming up. I teach with Ms. Dean. Ms. Dean was in Florida before this, and she was telling me, she said the worst thing that you can do is put kids into classrooms and not give them any support. She said she saw it several times. I don't know the number she gave me, and those kids just fell through the cracks. And when you meet this kid, you want the best for this kid. He's a great kid, and I think he just wants to learn. He just wants the opportunity, you know. And I think if we can develop something or build the consistency that we've got going right now, he's gonna work when he gets over here. You guys, make sure you guys are gonna love him because he'll be speaking English at that point.
It's also something for summer.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he's not gonna have as much exposure to English in the summer like he does now. He's like immersed in it all day, but I'm sure when he goes home,
None of his parents speak English.
so in summer, it'll just be Spanish.
And that's the other thing I'm hoping is that because this, you know, the sixth grade that we have is very good. They're great kids. And I'm hoping that there's the friendships that develop so that in summer he's not sitting in his house all alone.
Even if there was informal time where he could have some lessons or practice reading, you know, that would.
Yeah, and actually Michaela's doing that right now. She's doing that. She's, you know, when we we know he's like a second grade math level right now. So she's doing math, and then she has also been, just starting with the basic phonics. I mean, where every first grader, I'm assuming, starts with she's, and then she's working on that, teaching them those things. So, I mean, it's only 3 days in. I know you're probably thinking just relax, but if you don't have something in place, you're just walking around blind.
I'm not thinking just relax.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause
I've been
I'm really
in
not,
your
so.
shoes and I understand what it's like. And I had 4 years of Spanish in high school, so I could relate a little bit to him.
I got about 4 days.
Yeah, so I'm just, but I do like the conversation, and I'm.
Yeah, I do too.
Get busy on that Duolingo.
Yeah.
I told the kids I'm gonna learn one phrase a day, but I always check with,
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I got that one,
Hola,
yeah.
¿cómo estás?
I told Michaela, just make sure none of them are dirty words that I'm saying. Cause I wouldn't know the difference.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? That's hi, how are you? Say that to him every day.
You should ask him, ¿qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa?
Okay, got it. Well, wait a second. What do you say? All right, okay, boss. Okay, boss is senior doctor. Senior
Me
Jonas.
llamo Señor Doctor.
I can't remember how to say brothers. He told me yesterday. He thinks I'm in the Jonas brother yet, so we'll find.
Just keep that thought for a while.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that, we gotta go over those guys.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.